on recovery from life situations, be it a disease, chronic or acute, perhaps the loss of someone so dear to you in death, or a change of life patterns that has affected you so profoundly that you have no choice but to find your new normal and become focused on moving forward. Each episode is designed to show the positivity that people bring to each and every one of their stories, the successes they've had, ways that they have become so definitively focused on moving forward. We look forward to sharing their stories, and we hope that they inspire you just as much as they have inspired us. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the show. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Focused on Forward, the Friday Night Live edition. I'm really excited tonight because I have a gentleman here who's in the virtual green room, and we'll bring him out in a minute, by the name of Dustin. And Sean and I have gotten to know each other over the last year or so throughout the pandemic and being fellow podcasters. And our shows have a very similar line of thought and what we kind of talk about and some of those things. In fact, Sean and I were both up for an award for the best mental health podcast. And I am happy to say that Sean beat me out. So he's a really cool dude, and he's got a great show, and we're going to talk about that here in just a moment. But before we bring Sean out and we talk about his podcast and his journey in life to podcasting, let's listen to a video from our sponsor, Vital Signs and Graphics. Since 1982, Vital Signs and Graphics has been helping professionals with all their image, logo, and design needs. Perhaps you're looking for signs and banners, truck and trailer lettering, business cards, brochures, or other image and marketing aids. Vital Signs and Graphics in-house design studio has you covered. From logos to apparel, start to finish, Vital Signs and Graphics has everything you need to look and feel professional. Call Rick at 231-652-3300. He'll get you noticed. All right, so that's a video from Vital Signs. Yeah, give Rick a call at 231-652-3300 and tell him that you heard about him or saw him on Focused on Forward. And he'll get you taken care of, get you what you need. So at this time, let's bring in our guest. This is Sean Dustin. Welcome, Sean.
Hey, what's up, Tim? Hold on a second. Yikes. I'm trying to get a different set of headphones. I got some things I got to do afterwards. I'm not trying to mess my hair up. It's I got to do some video recording a little bit later, so I'm trying to make it last.
Yeah, no worries, man. No worries. So, everyone, this is Sean Dustin, and like I said in the pre-introduction, so one of the cool things about Sean is that, like I said, he's got a podcast that's very similar to mine and what we talk about and the things that we cover. His show is called Nowhere to Go But Up, and he is, in fact, the winner of the Best Mental Health Podcast Award on the Scene Snobs Network. He won the Snobby for that. I was only mostly jealous, but I got over it, though. We're good. So as we're going, if you have any questions or comments for Sean, please feel free to enter those into the comment section of wherever you're watching on Facebook, whether you're watching on the Scene Snobs channel, you're watching on the Focused on Forward channel, or if you're watching on my personal channel, you do need to allow StreamYard permission to be able to comment with your name and likeness. Otherwise, you show up as the awesome and wonderful Facebook user. Although we don't mind Facebook user, it's sure is nice to be able to put a name to the comment. So you won't have to do that on YouTube or Twitch. Those two are already self-loading with that. So again, Sean, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me, man. I really appreciate it. And congratulations to you too. I mean, you have a great show, and you deserve to be up there just as everybody else did too, and it could have been you as well. I mean, I appreciate it. It was a surprise to me.
Well, the thing is that there was good competition. There were good shows in that category, and I remember when the categories were announced and the shows were announced inside those categories. I told my wife, I said, I could lose to any one of those shows and be just as happy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. There wasn't one that I saw on there go, really, that guy, he's on there.
What's he doing there?
Exactly. So yeah, that never came up. So I was pretty happy about that. So, but hey, let's dive into your story, man. Let's talk about Sean Dustin and everything that was and is and how we got here.
How long we got? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, well, it's a story, that's for sure. I grew up in an abusive household. My father was a alcoholic and a police officer. I heard that there was, physical violence in the house. I never saw any of it, but I did, witness a lot of yelling and a lot of using me back and forth to get back at each other. You know how that thing goes when parents get divorced and there's children involved and all that, hard stuff. So, that happened. And that was probably the first like traumatic thing that I went through. And I've racked my brains trying to think of like, what could there have been something else? Because to me, that doesn't seem like a huge deal, but apparently it was. And I kind of, sort of spiraled from that. I was an angry kid. I was a bully. Until I got beat up by the bully by somebody else. And then that stopped. But it didn't change the fact that I was still angry. Got kicked out of a bunch of schools when I was younger. I got kicked out of preschool, got kicked out of 4 different junior high schools. Ended up graduating from a juvenile courts and community schools. When I was at a 16-month drug rehabilitation program as a youth. Got sent there because my mom, declared me incorrigible. I started using methamphetamine at 16 years old. It wasn't called meth then; it was called crank. Okay. the old school biker dope, but now it's what they refer to as methamphetamine.
Okay,
and so I mean, yeah, that was. I had an 18-year relationship with that drug off and on. And every time I did it, it ended up in the same situation. Either me in trouble in jail or, homeless. Well, not homeless, but I mean, almost losing everything. Okay. I think in this, in this whole journey from the time I was 16 till I would say 2010, I had gone to prison, been to 18 different institutions, rehabs included, 3 of those, did some violations after I got out of prison. What else? Almost died 5 times, started from 0 3 times. What else can I throw in there? It just seemed like this never ending ride of when I think about it, sometimes I feel like I was possessed that whole time. Like there was something that was controlling me, and I can't put my finger on it. And just as that happened, it went away just like that too. And all of a sudden, stuff just became clear, and I don't want to do this anymore. But in that process, right, I lost my daughter. I lost the rights to her. My ex had my rights terminated after an incident where I ended up costing her $18,000, $20,000 when I wrecked her vehicle that she let her insurance lapse on and wrapped it around a telephone pole.
Oh my!
Or a light pole.
Sure.
Which was a lot better than what did for me, because if I would have went a little bit more to the left or to the right, I would have went straight through a liquor store, which would have cost me a whole bunch of money.
Right.
Me, not her. So, I mean, I was just not a very good person, man. I was mean. I was manipulative. I was narcissistic. Okay. I was very, very, very just calculated. If you if I no longer had use for you or can get something out of you, I threw you away just as fast as you came in my life. You were out of my life. And so people didn't have, I didn't value people. I valued you as to what you could do for me or what I could get from you.
Right.
And, that lasted for a long time. And, at its worst, I was selling meth. I was employing, and this was in Vegas. I was employing other meth addicts, which the ones that, slam dope. And I was paying them in drugs to go and do smash and grabs for me and do burglaries and stuff in people's homes. And on top of that, I was counterfeiting $100 bills, making checks, doing just learning credit card fraud and how to like navigate that whole, thing. And so, at some point, I ended up making a mistake. I think I got raided, and there's a whole long story that goes along with that. But I ended up getting raided. I'd sold to an undercover 5 times. The guy that I was getting my stuff from ended up getting in trouble and then put a confidential informant on me. I sold to an undercover 5 times. They were surveilling me for about a month before they actually came in and with flashbangs and concussion grenades and like literally like the SWAT team came in and blew the doors off and blew the windows out. I wasn't in the room that they concentrated all of that in because I was in the back room. I had my TV on so loud that they just figured I was in there in the living room. And so, that was something. And, they arrested me. And I ended up getting out 3 days later on my own recognizance because I didn't have a criminal history. So, they went through all of that just to let me out 3 days later.
Oh, wow. That's quick.
Yeah. Well, then I was like, well, I'm not turning myself in. So you're going to have to catch me if you can at this point. And, that's what happened. So I was on the run for another 3 months and ended up making a mistake. I went on a crime spree down through, I think Arizona, Flagstaff, Arizona, went down all the way into Amarillo, Texas, doing something. Not really going to talk about what it was, but
no, that's fine. You don't have to.
I made a bunch of money and had a bunch of cash, and I came back, and there was our roommate at the time, because once they destroyed that place, I went and got another place. They didn't find any of the drugs or the cash in my house when they raided me. So I was able to just pick up and move and go and put the operation somewhere else. And our roommate at the time, she was hanging out with this guy, and his name was Steve. And he was like a hang around for the Hells Angels. So he was trying to earn his stripes.
Oh, okay.
And so I guess she had said, oh yeah, they're going to do something. So he thought we were just making a big drug run and coming back with a bunch of drugs, but whatever it was, he had one of these guys waiting there for us. And I knew something was up because she never really cares about what we're doing. And she kept calling like every 4 hours on our way back as to, hey, when are you going to be back? When are you going to be back? And so I was like, dude, there's something up. And so I went and I stashed all the money before I came home. And sure enough, we started getting high, and the guy pulls out a gun and gets me and my girlfriend on the floor and, tries to basically, get information as to what we were doing. Where did we go? Where's all the drugs at? And finally I just like, dude, you're pretty stupid if this is what you're trying to do, because, if you were smart, you would look over here. So, basically I was going misdirection, look at this hand and forget about what's over here.
Right.
And he bought it. And all I wanted was just to get some time to get this guy out of the house. Right. Just get out of here. Mm-hmm. You can take whatever you want that I got here, but just get out. And so he did. He got a little bit of cash. He took a Cannondale mountain bike and, a computer and something else. And 2 days later or day later, whatever it was, I went and purchased a shotgun in the identity that I'd stolen and I was using. And 2 days, I think 2 or 3 days later after that, because there's a cooling off period. You can't just go and buy a shotgun and take it home that day. I went and picked it up, and I was doing something else that I shouldn't have been doing in a hotel room. And when I used the identity and ID that I was using was a black person, the name and the number and all that other stuff. So, but I just changed and put my picture on it and everything else. And so when in Vegas, when you go to get a weekly, right, they send all that information to Metro and to make sure you're not a fugitive. And when they pulled it up, obviously I'm not a black guy. And so they said, all right, well, your room will be ready in like 3 hours. And I'm like, well, I didn't put two and two together that it's like, well, it's way past checkout. So I don't know why it would take 3 hours, and it's not very busy. So I was just concerned about going to pick up that gun. Right. Because I was going to kill the person. I mean, literally, that's why I got that gun, because I was going to kill this individual that basically, what would you call that? Like strong arm me in my own house?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think so.
And so that was the plan. And went and picked it up, came back to get the room. They were waiting for me. And that was the last time I saw daylight for about 3 years.
Okay. So was it this trip to prison, I'm assuming, is where you went? So was it in prison that you said, okay, something's got to change, I got to do something different? Or was it after the point of prison?
No, it was after prison, because I did two. I got out, started doing okay. And then 2008 hit. I'd gotten into my union, which I'm in now. So I had my apprenticeship program. But 2008 hit, and, we stopped working. I was getting the maximum amount on unemployment. And so, I had money and I had time on my hands, and I found the folks that, I grew up in the area, so I knew where to find the drugs, and I did. And I would say I got out in 2006, and I did 2 violations. One was at a 90-day men's treatment center. The other one was 90 days in a county facility. And so 6 weeks before I was going to turn myself in to do that last stint, I had gotten married, and I had went AWOL from my marriage for 3 months. Like, it literally just disappeared. Turned my phone off, went and I was doing credit card fraud, and I was doing all this other stuff. I'd gotten arrested, trying to pull a lick somewhere, and got caught, and was lucky that the state didn't press charges on me, because I was under federal custody anyways. I was on supervised release doing all this stuff.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So, I didn't care. It's like, it's almost like I was just trying to, like, I don't even know, man. I was just imploding. And every time things would start going good, I would, do something to screw it up, or I would, cause chaos or whatever. So anyways, I'm chasing my wife, my ex-wife now, but my wife at the time. I'm chasing her down the highway because I'm trying to convince her that things are going to be different. I promise. I won't do this anymore. I'm going to be done. It's over. I'm not going to do it. And she just wasn't buying it. And so, and for me, most of my relationships up to that point, I was a bully. I would do whatever I had to do to make you do what I needed you to do. Whether that was, try to be aggressive, whether it was, use your issues against you and beat you down, verbally or emotionally. I just wasn't a very nice person. And, I was trying to do that, and she wasn't buying it. And so we're flying down the highway. I'm in a high speed chase with her. We come up on traffic. She pulls over. I pull over behind her. Traffic's still going by us. I jump out. I'm screaming at her on the side of the highway. And all of a sudden, man, I just start crying uncontrollably. It was at that point that I realized that all of my manipulations, all of my BS, everything that I had done up to this point, none of it was working anymore. I wasn't getting the reaction, or I wasn't getting what I wanted. And I was like, just sitting there, and I could hear cars honking, "Wah, wah, get off your knees," and just people just screaming stuff out the windows were going by. And it was really surreal because I at one point I felt like I was above myself, looking at myself, just thinking like, how pathetic are you, man? You're 37, you're 30 some odd years old. You got nothing going for yourself. You have no career. You have no retirement. You have nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And here you are trying to push somebody into, doing what you want them to do. And they're not buying it. So nothing you're doing is working right now. What are you going to do? And from that point on, that's where the change happened. Well, one of the changes, because there's been a few, but the first one where me stopping using meth was that point. I went 6 weeks, I had 6 weeks to turn myself in. I stopped using, I stopped smoking. I went and I did my time. I came back, started, doing things right, started going to work. Luckily didn't get kicked out of my union. Started, joined the rowing team, got on, started getting really involved in the union as far as the business goes, like being a sergeant at arms. I got elected to that. Got elected as I did that for 2 years. 2 years later, I was elected as on the executive board and then trustee as well. Okay. And this whole time I'm playing softball. I'm doing all these good things to try and, turn things around. And what I didn't realize is that, yeah, just because the substances are gone, nothing inside has changed. Because I've never worked on anything, never worked the 12 steps, always got to the 4th step and was like, well, I'm out of here. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you want me to get real about some stuff? You want me to talk about all the embarrassing things that I've done and all the shameful things that I've done in my life? Like bullying my the women that I've been with, and, all of that stuff that's really shameful and embarrassing, losing my daughter. And like how I tried to play it off as if, oh, well, she's better off without me anyways, at least I don't have to pay child support now. And, that was all a front, man, because I was dying. I was dying inside, literally. And, so yeah, I went and did that. Everything started getting better. But it wasn't. I was still leveling up and doing the things that I was supposed to be doing. But in my relationship, with my ex, my now 3.5-year-old daughter, her mom, I was still doing the same thing, still being abusive, still angry, not dealing with anything. But yeah, I mean, I'm leveling up and doing really well in work, and but here's another thing too, though, is that my anger started getting really, really bad. I was getting in fights playing softball, got kicked out of softball for a year. That was the one thing that I loved to do, man. I loved being out there. I loved playing, and I got myself kicked out of that. Here's one thing that really kind of put it in perspective for me is, I was working for a company. When I journeyed out, I was a journeyman for 3 months, and the company that I'd worked for as an apprentice called me and said, hey, you've been recommended to be a superintendent for this company by 3 people. And so I went, and that doesn't happen. So a superintendent is basically a general foreman superintendent so I went from being an apprentice to the very top, and got a truck, and, I was really proud of myself and everything else, but I was still trying to fight people, man, even at work. And I ended up getting myself fired from that job. And when you hurt yourself financially, or at least when I hurt myself financially, it's like, whoa, okay, ouch, that hurt.
Right.
And so I had no choice but to take a look at my behavior. And the turning point on the behavior was so my daughter was about 1.5 years, and I was in a rage, and I was screaming at my ex, and she was behind me. And I looked back and she was gone, and it snapped me out of it. And I was like, oh, wow, where'd she go? And so I went looking for her, and she was hiding in the furthest part of the house, curled up in a ball, crying, shaking. She was afraid of me.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that had to be a very sobering moment, because, and some of the things that I've read about with folks that have gone through, uh, some similar issues, especially with you talked about the 12 step earlier. You said you always kind of walked out before step 4. Is that you have to be ready to do those steps. If you're not ready, it's not going to matter anyway. If you just kind of go through the motions and walk through it, having gone through this myself, so please, forgive my ignorance on the topic, but it almost seems to me like a blessing in disguise for you that you didn't do it until you were ready, because I think that if you had have done it before you were ready to kind of step up to the plate, so to speak,
mm.
I don't think that it would have mattered. I don't think it would have caught.
Well, I mean, that's with anything. I mean, you can't tell anybody anything. They have to come to those conclusions on their own. A lot of people do.
Right.
And, it was, in that moment when I saw her, what went through my mind was, I wonder if that was me when my parents were fighting. And am I just continuing the cycle? Am I affecting the next generation?
Right.
What am I doing for her? And how am I debilitating her? Because a lot of the times, you think you hear about women that they date their fathers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard that before?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so if that's the case, then I'm leaving an example of, now, if she gets involved with somebody who's doing the same things that I'm doing to her mother, then she's just going to think, well, that's just normal. My parents did that, which is not normal.
Right.
And it's not okay. And from that point on, I was like, no, I need to stop this now. And I ended up leaving. And it happened one more time. And that was it. And so basically, I started the podcast, and, after I left, and my goal was to, I don't know. I mean, I had a lot of different goals when I started the podcast, and most of it was I wanted to tell my story because I felt like I had one to tell, but I also wanted to hear other people's stories too, and, see where I related, because, getting through that was difficult for me. And I mean, it was literally a 10-year transformation. I mean, it started in 2010, and I mean, we're still here now. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm definitely, not cured, but I don't do the same things that I used to do. I mitigate problems before they happen. I talk about my issues. I speak about things openly on my podcast and other podcasts. And, hopefully I'm an inspiration and an example to other men out there that are, maybe struggling with the same sort of things, the same sort of anger issues, and, being abusive. And, the one thing that I did realize, the more that I talked about it, the less power it had over me.
Right.
And I was able to move through it instead of going around things or going over them like I was used to doing. The only way that you can get through anything is you got to go through it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where I'm at now. I mean, I skipped over some stuff. I mean, I went from a 18-year meth addiction to a 7-year opiate addiction, from getting injured playing softball. But I was still able to function on that. But I think 6 months prior to me starting the podcast, I was like, well, if you're going to be talking about being transparent and authentic and all this stuff you want to talk about in your podcast, how are you going to do that if you're still taking pills, selling pills and doing all this other stuff?
Right.
And so I stopped. And the way that I did that, and I did it on my own, I just weaned myself down by going half, 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 half until I was down to, because I was taking about 10 Percocets. I was taking Percocets about 10 pills a day.
Wow.
And so I weaned down until I was taking about a quarter pill, and then I transitioned into edible marijuana to ease the withdrawal symptoms.
Okay.
And then that was it.
All right. So moving forward past the point of some of the issues that you had, did you get counseling for any of those issues, or were this all self-taught, self-healed issues?
I use the podcast.
Okay.
So I used the podcast to basically do my 4-step. And so admitting to God and the rest of the world that all my shortcomings and, things, my pains, my shames, my guilts,
Sure.
I kind of, let my listeners or viewers or whatever you want to call them be my witness to, who I used to be. And when I'm struggling with something, when I was struggling with something, and when I do still struggle with stuff, I'll bring somebody on that specializes in something. So I'll leverage the podcast to have somebody come on, whether it's a mental health counselor, whether it's somebody that specializes in self-sabotage or anger issues or whatever it is that I end up struggling with. I have them come on and I'll talk about my own issues. I actually, it's funny, I've hooked up with a hypnotherapist, and I'm trying to get her to do a live, putting me under live, so we can work through some issues. And I don't have a problem with people seeing an example of somebody working through their stuff.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I've said this many times on the show here myself, that this for me has been the cheapest but most effective form of therapy that I've ever had. Being able to talk to other people and how they're managing certain situations in life and what they do and how they're moving past it. And, many times you'll see me, while people are talking, I'm like, oh, that's a really good idea. I'm going to, you'll see me reach over for a pen, pad of paper or something. And, and because I think that every story has its own power and what somebody does and how they've come to acknowledge where they're at and why they're there. So,
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you totally.
All right. So with your story, looking back over everything that you've gone through, how much do you feel that your home situation, your life situation as a young man played into how you moved forward?
It played huge. Because I was a latchkey kid when I was in the 3rd grade. So that first place that I got kicked out of in preschool, landed me as a latchkey kid and taking myself to school and from home to school and back, in the 3rd grade. And my mom used to work in San Francisco and was, gone quite a bit. Okay. And so like I was at home, from the time, I got home from school at 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever it ended up being, until sometimes 9, 10 o'clock at night. And so, I had no supervision. I had no structure. I had no consequences. Consequences I did have. Okay, you're going to put me on restriction. Who's going to enforce it? You try to call. I'm just going to I took the phone off the hook and say, I was talking on the phone, but I'd be out playing with my friends, doing whatever I wanted. And so that just sort of transitioned all the way through, into adulthood. Because there was my disdain for authority, because what, you tell me what to do? Nobody tells me what to do.
Right.
Nobody has in the past, and no one's going to start now. And so there was that authoritarian, my dislike for it.
Okay. So with everything that you're dealing with now, and because somebody who's used in the past, that it's not that they flip a switch one day and they go, okay, I'm done, I'm healed, I'm cured, I'm never going to do that again. There's always going to be, pulls and fights, because it's an addiction, and that's why it's an addiction. What do you do on the days when there's a pull towards that for you? What helps you to kind of negate that?
Well, when it comes to meth, I haven't had a pull towards that in a long time. Well, you know what? That's a lie. Well, maybe not a lie, but that's not accurate.
Not entirely accurate.
Yeah.
Sure.
So there was one time, and it was when I had the podcast, and there was this prostitute that had friended on, not for that reason. I knew what she was doing, and I wanted to have a prostitute on the show to talk about the funny incidents with, some Johns, right? Some dates, you got some funny date stories, but what it really was. And after I started really digging into why I was trying to even get involved with this person, is I knew she was a meth addict, and I could see her blowing smoke. I knew what it was. And so as I got to know her a little bit better, yeah, she was a meth addict. And so I caught myself trying to have her come to my place to record. And it was my mind trying to get me in a situation where nobody would know. And if she pulled out any drugs, I would be like, sure, let's go. And nobody would know the difference. And I caught myself before that happened, and I ended up just deleting her out of my phone. And that was the last time. That was probably about, I would say, maybe 3 years ago.
Okay.
So that's the closest it's ever been with the meth. Now, I'm not your typical recovering addict, because I do microdose THC daily. So I take about 5 milligrams of edible, what do you want to call it? Like infused ghee butter with I don't do it anymore. I used to, but before I went to work, I would take it in the morning with my coffee, and it doesn't get you high. It's not even enough to get you high, but it just gives you all the benefits still. And that worked for me pretty well. And so now I do it when I get home from work. But yeah, that's I just don't put myself in situations where that might be bad for me. So, like, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
I'll still go to a bar every now and again and maybe have a drink, just being social, but I know better than to be at that bar when it closes.
Okay.
Because what happens when bars close down? Oh, hey, let's go to my house. And then what usually happens in my house is drugs start flowing, getting passed around. Hey, you want to get some of this? You want to do that? And so I know that that's probably not the best place for me.
Right.
Because I don't know what I'm going to, like, I have no idea if it was in front of me, what I would do. I'd like to say no, that I wouldn't, but who knows? I mean, it could be a bad day, could be a bad week.
Right.
My inhibitions could be low or high, whatever it is.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
So I just mitigating is and knowing your triggers and knowing your weaknesses and trying to navigate away from them or not land yourself in the middle of them. For me, that's what's been working.
Okay.
And I have more to lose now. Back in those days, I didn't really have much to lose. So, I mean, I would use that to my advantage all the time. It's like, well, I got nothing to lose anyway, so who cares?
Right.
But now, I mean, I have my daughter. Some of the good things that have happened because of, my podcast and everything that's been going on is that I recently just connected with the daughter that I lost the rights to.
Oh, that's awesome.
We talked on the phone last night for the first time. We've been texting for about 2 or 3 months, and I finally got to speak to her on the phone last night. And that was amazing, man.
Congratulations. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's
Thanks,
a very cool step in the right direction. I hope that continues to work out for you.
Yeah, me too. It's I don't know. I feel really, really, really blessed to be able to make that situation right. And by having had a daughter and been with my 3-year-old, my 3.5-year-old, it really showed me how important that relationship is between father and daughter.
Yeah.
And so like, I know what she missed out on. And I feel so bad about it, and there's not much I can do about it except try to, do the best that I can going forward. And,
Right.
just letting her know and keep letting her know, like, hey man, I'm here for you. And, don't worry, I'm not going anywhere.
Well, it's like you said, you can't undo the past. You can't undo what's done. But what you can do, and sorry to plug the show name here, but you can focus on forward,
Mm-hmm.
and and you move forward with it. So let's talk a little bit though about your podcast, about Nowhere to Go But Up. So first off, where did the name come from? And let's talk a little bit about your show and what you do on there, and why it's so cool, and how you got to beat me out on for mental health podcaster of the year.
So the name is what it basically is what my life was. I mean, from starting in zero at 3 times and all the stuff that I've been through, I felt that was the most appropriate name to give it, because so many times I've always felt like I got nowhere to go but up, it's like, and so that's where it came from. And it started out as a bottoms and life struggles and how my guests got through it. It morphed into that plus, justice impacted stories, comeback stories. I talk a lot about mental health. I talk to a lot of people that have gone through some really rough things, and I give them the space to tell their stories. And, as I identify with certain things, I'll chime in. It was really for the first time I ever came out about my own abusive behavior is when I interviewed somebody who was a domestic abuse survivor, and I just felt compelled to. I don't even know why, man. I just felt bad because I'd engaged in those kind of behaviors myself.
Okay.
And to hear how this person felt, and maybe it wasn't as bad as what I did wasn't as bad, but it's still, it doesn't matter. Abuse is abuse.
Right.
Whether you're beating somebody up or verbally or physically, it's all the same. It's all bad.
Right.
And yeah, and so it's just a lot of those stories, and then I got into things that I'm interested in, and it's kind of taken on a life of its own. There's 132 episodes. There's literally something in there for everybody. I've got actors. I've got if I see a good documentary, I'll reach out to the producer or whoever did the documentary and try to get them on. There's been a lot of different things that I've gotten because of it. This podcast has opened up so many doors for me.
Yeah.
I've started a nonprofit organization because of it.
Yeah, well, I wanted to talk to you about that for just a moment. Why don't you, since you were mentioning here, why don't you bring that up and let's tell everybody about it.
So I decided that I wanted to make a difference in my population of people, the formerly incarcerated folks in my area and my community. And after doing, market research and figuring out what the need in this particular area was, it was for transitional age youth males, 18 to 24-year-olds coming out of incarceration and re-entering the community. And what I wanted to do was build a living facility that basically was about a year to a year and a half program that kind of ran them through all kinds of different things and taught them how to be able to transition from, youth to adulthood and kind of shed that, that exterior, the behaviors and all those things that, were keeping them sick in their own way. And it was all because of how I got out. I had a support system and I still struggled.
Right.
And, what must it be like for some of these folks, some of these kids that are coming out and they're going right back to the same messed up situation, that they left, so the cards are really stacked against them. And so I decided to do that, and I did. And now it's a 501c3. I'm putting the board of directors together. I just onboarded a whole, I've got 8. I need to put one more, and I have a lawyer. But everybody that's on my board of directors, except for 2, have been formally incarcerated, including the lawyer. So, I mean, it's really, a testament to most of the people that I have on my board are people that I've interviewed on my podcast.
Oh, okay.
And so, I mean, just through hearing their stories and making connections with people and, all of that stuff, I was able to put together something really cool. Excellent. And I'm hoping that, it's called the Nowhere to Go But Up Project. And there is a tab on my my website. It's not complete yet, but it's still being built. That will have all the information for that. And at some point it's going to have its own website. But for now, until we get to that point, because we haven't even started bringing money in or done grants or anything else, we're having the first meeting actually next month on the 17th with all of the board members and kind of onboarding everybody and being like, all right, so here we are, here's the team. What are we going to do?
And next.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's cool, man. Yeah, I'll make sure that when we post, obviously this is going to go live for the replays. We'll be on YouTube. I'll make sure that we put a link to your podcast in the description so that people can hopefully go out and take a look at. Of course, I want them to see your podcast, but I also want them to see this project as well, because I really do think it's a super cool project. And I think it's so neat that this is something that you've been working on. But let's talk a little bit more about your podcast as well. So you said that you have 132 episodes out there. Mm-hmm. What do you think has been your most unique episode? And I ask that because with 132 episodes, because I can tell you that with mine, there's 1 or 2 that I go, yeah, this one was the most unique. This one stands out to me. I'm not saying it's the best or it's your favorite, but is there one that when somebody asks you about your show, well, what's your show about, or what do you do? Is there one that you go, well, this might be the one that might catch attention?
Somebody asked me that same question the other night. They go, I want to listen to your podcast. What's your favorite episode? I couldn't answer it. And I haven't answered it because I have no idea. They all have a unique place. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like they're all like my children. You know what I mean? It's like,
oh, I do.
Like, how do you like? I like all of them. I think each one of them has something very, very, very unique about them. But if I had to pick one, I would say it would be number 83, and that is with a guy by the name of David DeRocher, and he runs a therapeutic community up in Utah, which I went and traveled to after I interviewed him. But I found him on a TED Talk, and I made contact with him like 40 minutes after I saw this talk. I mean, he moved me so much by listening to him that I literally searched for him, found him, and had made contact with him within 40 minutes.
Oh, that's cool.
Set up the podcast date, did it. And he invited me up to Utah to go tour his facility. And this is because I was getting ready to do my own, right? Because I'd already had the nonprofit and all that stuff was getting ready to be done. And I wanted to go and see how he was running his facility, because I really think that therapeutic communities are the way to go. Peer driven support, not professionals. No professionals work there whatsoever. It's all peers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And formerly incarcerated people and folks that have gone through the program and successfully and wanted to stay on and continue to help.
Oh, wow.
And so that was probably the one, because he is an influencer, and he influenced me to want to do better and to want to help my community and to make a change in that way. That's
cool. I think for me, because I've been asked the same question, and that's why I ask other podcasters, because I'm like, well, if I had to be on the hot seat, somebody else has to too. For me, it's I got an opportunity to talk to Nancy Sovereign. Nancy runs a charity here in Michigan called Wish Upon a Teen, and they were an awesome group to deal with while my daughter was in the hospital. And so I try to do whatever I can to try and shine a light back on Wish Upon a Teen, and even something as simple and small as making an Amazon Smile donation, which I bought a few more things tonight, Nancy. So if you're watching, you get another donation from Amazon Smile for my purchases. So I chose them as my favorite charity, and then so every time I buy something from Amazon, just even something as small as that gets money over to Wish Upon a Teen so they can keep helping sick kids. But yeah, so for me, that was a really big deal for me to be able to interview her and talk with her, and just to be able to say thank you for what she did for my family while my daughter was in the hospital was for me a very major and massive thing. But we do have a question here from Andrew. Andrew Lilly asks, he wants to know how long in total you were locked up.
So I did a 15 to 60 month sentence in the state of Nevada, paroled out after 18 months, and then I paroled right into my federal sentence, which was another 18 months. So probably about a total of 3 years. I would say all together, if you were to take all of the times that I gave my my freedom away, it would probably be about 5 years in total.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right, Andrew, there's your answer, sir. All right, so we got about 8 minutes left here. So I have two questions that I like to ask every guest. Okay.
Okay.
So the first one is, looking back over the entirety of your journey, what's the single greatest lesson that you have learned?
It's a tough question.
I try.
I would say the single most greatest thing that I learned was how to forgive myself.
Okay.
Because all the things that I caused and all of the pain that I caused, a lot of that kept me sick for a long time because I just, I just allowed it to consume me. And it wasn't until I forgave myself and, that I was able to move through it.
Okay, cool. All right. Second question, very similar to the first, looking back over your journey. What was the single greatest piece of advice that you used or received and that you still use?
Mm-hmm.
And if there's not, go ahead.
No, you can only keep what you have by giving it away.
Okay.
So meaning is that don't go into things looking for what's in it for me. Go into things and truly try to provide value and to insight or help or whatever it is for somebody else. And if you're supposed to get something out of it, you will. And it may not be from that person. It may not even be from that situation.
Right.
It could come 5 months down the road from somewhere completely even different, not even related to anything that you did. So it's really important to, if you're going to do something and you really truly are trying to help people, then help people. Don't worry about what's in it for you. Because if you're worried about what's in it for you, you're not there for the right reason.
No, you already started off on the wrong foot for sure. Yep. For sure. Okay, cool. All right, so let's make sure everybody knows where they can find your podcast and more information about Sean Dustin.
So this is probably one of the first ones that I've been able to plug this website, because I've been doing this for 2 years and I just now got a website. Shout out to Maria Daniels and Reset Business Consulting. She's the one who did it. Oh yeah, she's amazing, man. I love Maria.
She's so cool.
And so, yeah, you can find me at nowhere to go but up pod.com. That should have all my social media links and everything there. There's a link tree that has a bunch of stuff that haven't made it over to the website yet. So the link tree is linktr.ee/nowhere to go but up. And that'll have like all the different ways to connect to the show, merchandise, support, all those nifty things that us podcasters put together to try to make our dreams come true.
Awesome. All right. Very cool. And just to kind of whet the appetite of our listeners here, what are some of the topics that you have coming up that they could look forward to hearing on Nowhere to Go But Up?
So Monday, I have one that's really because I do a live stream as well. So Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays are the days that I do live stream. So depending on if somebody books in those time slots, and you'll find all that information usually on, just like Tim here, I use StreamYard. So you'll find it on YouTube, on, Facebook. But Monday I'm having a guy who's, he has a business called the Hate Street Shroom Shop. And so I'm really interested in, therapeutics with psilocybin. But also other mushrooms too, because he's a mycologist, and so
Okay.
I'm interested in all the different, like lion's mane, chaga, cordyceps, all the different kind of mushrooms and what their functions and uses are, because they all deal with a separate thing, right?
Right.
You take lion's mane for brain, cognitive function. They all have different uses. So I think that's going to be a really interesting one. Plus, he's been really active on Senate Bill 519 in California, which is the decriminalization of psychedelics.
Okay.
And that's on the Senate floor and about to be voted on here shortly. So I'm going to get a lot more information on that. And then also too, like when I went back to work, I had to cancel like 5 interviews this week that I had lined up. And so I got to really get to, I got to reschedule those. And so some women that have been to federal prison are coming up, a bunch of other things. I had a doctor, that was going to come on and talk about, some of the stuff that's going on right now, in another topic.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, hey guys, make sure you guys get over to Nowhere to Go But Up podcast. You can find it on all your favorite audio podcast providers. That's where, I think I follow you on, or subscribe to you rather, on Apple, because that's my primary. So I'm pretty sure that's where I've subbed to you on. It's either that or Google Podcasts, one of the two, because I use both of them. So you guys can, of course, follow him on your audio podcast. Go to his website. Again, what is it, Sean?
It's nowhere to go but up pod.com. And the very first thing that comes up there is Apple. So if you're an Apple user, it's bam right there. It's got all the iTunes
perfect
thing.
All right. So make sure you guys go to his website, check that out. And Sean, hey, thank you for being a guest tonight on Focused on Forward. And thank you for allowing us to be part of your story.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you, Tim. And I'm glad we were able to do this. And, thanks for giving me the space and the opportunity to share my experience.
Well, thank you for being so open with it. All right, guys, that's going to conclude us tonight for Focused on Forward. Well, that concludes another episode of Focused on Forward. To be a guest of Focused on Forward, you can reach us through Twitter at podcastfof, through our Facebook page named Focused on Forward, or through email focusedonforward@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing each and every one of your stories that has yet to be told. So until then, be safe, be kind, and be loving to one another as you stay focused on forward.